Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Tonight I'm speaking on the reality of affluence. It is a title, really, that comes from the book In the Flow of Life by Eric Butterworth. It is some of his wonderful teachings, and he uses the root word of affluence, which we think of as being wealth and position and power, actually. We've kind of attributed it to all of those things. But it really has the root of being flow. It comes from a deeper word of flow. And so what teaching really is that the reality of flow is actually where the source of all substance and where all expression and where all manifestation arises. And so that, in fact, is the prosperity of the universe. It is when we put ourselves in the flow of things. I wanted tonight to introduce you, in addition to that, kind of merge these two ideas with a book by Rocco Errico that I read years ago called Setting a Trap for God. And what it is his interpretation of the Aramaic prayer version of the Lord's Prayer. And he gives a great exegesis or interpretation of it from start to finish throughout this book. But I wanted to center on one part of it, one phrase, Tave Makutha, which is, let your kingdom come. Let your kingdom come. That little portion of the Lord's Prayer. Makutha is the Aramaic word for kingdom, but it also has a root verb to counsel or to advise. Also the root for king or advisor or counselor. And so what we think of as the kingdom of God, I was taught, was heaven. It was a state, or a place that you hope to get to or whatever. But that I was always told the kingdom was wherever God was. God was king, therefore everything in association with God was the kingdom. And so in understanding that as in unity and in New Thought, it's been very clear to me that really wherever we acknowledge the center is or where divinity resides, everything surrounding it, everything emanating from it, brings the kingdom, the experience of the kingdom of all possibility. And so Errico says that the prayer is for a reality that rules from inside the hearts and minds of all human beings, a kingdom where God rules or counsels. But the idea here is that actually emanates from within us. So it is within the heart of us that where we allow ourselves to listen deeply for that still small voice that we think of as our personal guidance or wisdom to connect us or to guide us in our own personal life, it is actually meant to be the way in which we express into the world so that we bring an experience of the kingdom, of the divine kingdom, everywhere. So really what I want to share with you is that there is the teaching is that everything, we know that the kingdom resides within, but we've heard that. But do we really live from that place? And do we realize the consequence that when we actually experience this internal awareness and when we allow ourselves to recognize that the counsel or the still small voice within us is not just for us, but it is for us to bring to the world? Have you ever thought of it that way? It's not just for your personal aggrandizement or for your personal prosperity or for your personal well-being or wholeness. It is, of course, for those things. It doesn't exclude those things. but it is through you and through the spirit, the life force that you are, the portal that your body in this 3D world actually is, the doorway into expressing the divine. That still small voice, the kingdom of God that resides within you, is not just for you, but for the world through you. And that, in my opinion, changes everything. You know, you cannot be a conduit for truth, wisdom, peace, joy, abundance, goodness. You can't be the conduit for it without blessing everything in your experience, without getting it all over you, without spilling over into your own life. Of course it's for you, but it's really for you to model, to share, and to radiate to the world. And so at once, following your own innate desire is at the same time fulfilling your soul's purpose. And isn't that just the way God would set it up? Errico also says that Jesus knew that humans rule alone without God's leadership. Human rule alone without God's leadership as Father would bring strife and division. In other words, human beings left to our own devices, well, we see plenty of evidence of that, right? When we're left to our own ego rule, we certainly see how we separate, how we compare, how we compete, how we dissemble. He knew that God's kingdom embraces all nations and peoples impartially. And he gives a definition of impartial this way. He says, not partial, impartial meaning not partial, not part, but rather whole. So impartial means not part, but the wholeness of it. And once we get the wholeness, the connection of right, left, up, down, good, bad, in, out, light, dark, when we begin to embrace everything, we then lose our capacity for judgment. When we include, when we bring it all together, when we see it all as a part of a greater whole, then we don't outweigh one thing over another, or separate one, or judge one off. Instead, we embrace it all so that all can come together as a wholeness and as a healing. If you have the kingdom of God reigning in your heart, you no longer see partially, you see the whole picture. You will fundamentally respond and act differently in the world than you do now. When you can hold in your heart this connection, this sense of something greater than what you can see out here in the world, where we focus on this piece or that piece, we can only take in so much with this. But this can perceive the whole thing. This part of us is where the kingdom of heaven resides, the kingdom of God resides. Errico says, in reality, we inwardly know the truth of God's guidance, but we don't always act on it. So how does the kingdom come? Jesus refers to the kingdom is really that sense of God's presence in us. God's reign, which is subtle in its administration, is in reality that still small voice. Joseph Campbell says, the divine manifestation, in other words, the expression of the divine, is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Only our eyes are not open to it. So this is the part that we're restricted in some ways. But in this part, awe, Joseph Campbell says, awe is what moves us forward. So it's a perception, it is a feeling, it is a deeper sense inside of us. Professor Bernard Scott, who wrote a Jesus symbol maker for the kingdom, he says that the Lord's Prayer requests both that others may experience the coming of the kingdom and that the kingdom come. In other words, requests both of those, that we experience it and that it come into expression. And he says that reality may dispel the illusions surrounding it, that the kingdom of God break out of its boundary. I love that the kingdom of God break outside of its boundary. In other words, I can't contain it, you can't contain it. This inheritance, this divine presence, this awareness, the peace that passes understanding, the deep connection that we have, that we touch, that we fall into, that you were just visiting, maybe in and out of, maybe sporadically, maybe a solid hum, I don't know, but something just now where you allowed yourself to sort of disappear for a while, kind of not separate, but in some ways carry yourself into a depth of place. It was quiet. I could hear a pin drop in here. There was such quiet, such beauty in here. When we reach that kind of state, there's a place that is a solid thing, not an emptiness, not an absence, but a holy presence of something. In Matthew chapter 6:33, but first, Erica's version is, but first you search for the sovereign counsel of God, the kingdom of God, and his justice, and all these things shall abundantly be given to you. If seek ye first the kingdom, and all these things will be added to you, is how we've typically seen. This is an expression of where does our abundance come from? That idea of affluence, the idea of substance, of sustenance, of being supported in the universe. Where does it come from? It comes first here, in the depths of us, and in the connection, in the faith and in the trust. And knowing that there is a flow that comes through us, this idea that we are a part of that, and when we open ourselves, every good thing can flow in and through and out as shared. So long as we don't grasp, so long as we don't try to control, so long as we don't try to hold on to or take in any kind of a way, but rather just really live with an openness and an expansiveness and a heart open place. Erica says, the search for God's kingdom first means to open our minds and hearts to the guidance of God above all else. When we do this, then all of our needs, material and otherwise, flow to us and out from us. To us and out from us. The reality of affluence. Isn't that the way it should be? If we really take the definition of affluence the way we have often thought of it, isn't that somebody who's affluent is limitless in some ways? Don't we kind of think that? Once you reach that status, well, you've got it made. You got plenty. You can have anything you want. Everything you touch, everything you want, everything. Don't we sort of have that sense about those who have? When I don't feel like I have all that I could possess or all I want necessarily, I still feel like there's a gap between where I am and maybe where I'd really be comfortable, where I'd really want to go, maybe. And if that's the case, then we think that there are those who can have everything. They can have anything. And so in a sense, we attribute that idea as being limitless. How do we even know about that? Because it is the deepest truth about ourselves. Because actually there is always a flow coming to us, and it comes from an infinite source, and it is limitless. David Steindl-Rast says, the more alert we become to the blessing that flows into us through everything we touch, the more our own touch will bring blessing. As we look back over our life, we can see how we've been sustained, how we may have taken important things for granted, including ourselves, and in some ways realize that we have been given every good thing in our lives. Take a moment and think about that. Even when you have had hardships and difficulties and challenges, Yet here you are. You've come out on the other side. You're seated here. Perhaps you're going through another challenge or difficulty. You need only look back over your life and see the many times that you have been in and out of shadow and back, always back into the light, back into love, back into this moment. Elizabeth Lester says, we can relax and float in the direction that the water flows, or we can swim hard against it. If we go with the river, the energy of 1,000 mountain streams will be with us. I wish that for you, the reality of affluence. May people speak of you as affluent. May you speak of yourself as affluent. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Namaste.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.